Welcome to the Fish House Nation podcast presented by Catch Cover, your home for ice fishing news, tips, stories, and strategies. And now, your host, Chris Larson.
Welcome to the Fish House Nation podcast. Today, our guest is Anna Leschyshyn, and you may know her better as Anna on Ice. Anna, thanks for joining the show.
Absolutely, Chris. Thank you for having me on.
Today, we wanted to talk to you about winter ice camping in a portable, going out on the ice and spending some time overnight. Most of our audience, they're very familiar with the wheelhouse stuff and going out and camping in the wheelhouse, and this is kind of a scaled-down version of that. Tell us a little bit about your experience with winter ice camping.
For sure, yes. So I've done, growing up in the past, I did just a couple outings, kind of as a teenager, and it's been quite a while since, I really have an adulthood. So when my friend and business partner, Nicole Stone, proposed the idea, I was like, absolutely, let's do that. It just makes for a really great, affordable option. If you don't have access to a wheelhouse, or maybe, you don't want to, pay to rent one or anything like that, it really makes for an awesome secondary option. And in Nicole and I's case, it actually allowed us, a way to have that overnight experience on a lake that maybe doesn't have an access point. If you're more of a hiking in or a remote lake, it allows you to have that kind of overnight experience without actually having a fish house. So that's where her and I really wanted to kind of dial that in and get to just have the full, the rattle reels going off in the night and whatnot. So that's what we actually opted to do just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, so for people who are just used to kind of fishing in their portable during the day, why would they want to stay overnight in the portable? You talked a little bit about kind of why you would do this over doing the wheelhouse thing, but why do some camping overnight on the ice rather than just call it a day and head in?
Sure. Well, it optimizes kind of, especially in a new body of water that you're not sure if, there's a night bite or not, or maybe the opposite. Maybe it is a lake that you do know that, you're going to get a lot of bites at that 2, 3, 4 a.m. mark. And that was kind of the situation for Nicole and I. We opted to target really big crappies. We knew that we were fishing a lake that held some really large fish in it that typically tend to feed over that, the overnight period. So we were like, hey, we want to maximize the amount of time. We had a good bite window during the day, caught some really nice ones, and the bite kind of slowed down, and then it fired right back up overnight. So that it really gives you that, it's a camping experience, but you're getting to do that while also being on the frozen water. So it's kind of a cool, more almost like you're in touch with nature aspect as well, because you're sleeping on the actual ice. So that would be my reason of why you would want to really optimize that time frame of going all night and being able to catch fish.
You talked about camping, but on a big frozen slab of water. I think a lot of people would say that sounds insane. What's the coldest temperature that you would consider doing this in?
I don't mean to maybe if I call myself a diehard, I trust my gear. I know that my Otter Shack is, going to stay toasty warm, even in, ultra negative temperatures. I would, if I knew that I had all, backup heaters, all the right equipment, I would feel comfortable overnight camping in 20 below, but that's my comfort level. And knowing my gear and trusting that, hey, if I'm, if something fails or something, doesn't work, that I at least have a backup, but some people may not be comfortable with that level. I think if you're a first timer, maybe stick to more average temperatures, just in that case scenario, know how fast it's going to take you to get off the ice in case something does happen. If there's a vehicle, if there's people nearby, there's a lot of factors that you do want to consider almost in a safety sense as well.
You talked about heating your portable. How are you heating the portable when you're out doing an ice camping trip?
So I'll use this recent trip that with Nicole as kind of the primary example. So we had the Big Buddy heater from Mr. Heater, and we had two 20-pound cylinder propane tanks. And, of course, the likelihood that you're ever going to go through one of those is pretty rare for a 24-hour period. But, like I said, you want to have a backup. So we had 2 of those heaters with a hose extension that, was outside of the tent through the, there's like a hole that you can, feed it out through. And then another really, really important factor that you want to consider when camping on the ice is to make sure that you are using something to insulate your floor. So a lot of people opt to use kind of that foam, it looks like puzzle pieces and they come in big squares. A lot of people opt to use that because it's super light, it's affordable, and it's really easy to transport onto the ice. You just kind of fold them up and then place them together and cover the floor. And what that does, it keeps a layer between you and the ice, so that way that cold air isn't continuously kind of melting and coming up through. If you really want to rough it, I would, at the bare minimum, have at least that foam padding between yourself and a cot that you're going to be sleeping on, so that, a bare minimum that you're at least a little bit more insulated while you're sleeping. A huge, huge factor that if anyone would ever consider doing this, you absolutely 110% need at least 2 carbon monoxide detectors, because when you're using propane heat, that is always a safety factor that you need to consider, because if there's a leak of any kind or a thread that's off, you want to know if there's a risk of carbon monoxide poisoning. So that's very, very important to have one on either side of your shelter. And then using the vent system that most all portable pop-up shacks come with these days. So definitely just make sure those open, well ventilated, and you should be really safe to sleep on the ice.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I think when you see people talk about this, that's always the number one fear, is the carbon monoxide thing. And I think having 2 detectors with you is a really good idea. Then you're kind of doubling your fail-safe protection there. So I like that idea. And
for sure.
You talked a little bit about your hub shelter being an Otter, and of course they do make some great hub shelters. But I think the thing that people really should look at, and I see it all the time online, people are looking for inexpensive shelters. But one thing I think, if you're considering doing this, and really if you're ice fishing in Minnesota, you probably should just have an insulated shelter of some kind. And I think we're probably getting to the point where uninsulated shelters maybe are not the way to go.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think if you are going to do, uninsulated shelters work great, if you are just going out during the daytime and, you have optimal heat and whatnot, if you're kind of more roughing it and you can stay bundled. But if you're going to sleep on the ice, I would recommend highly that you do have a nice insulated shelter. And that was what we used. We just had the Otter Resort style, and, really nice thick walls to make sure that you're really retaining that heat.
You talked a little bit about the cot. Can you tell us about that cot and kind of your sleeping system, your sleeping bags, everything you're using to stay warm while you're sleeping?
For sure. That's super important, of course. So, of course, you want to keep your body up off of the ice. You want to use a cot, we had 2 single-person cots that we just kind of had kind of pointing adjacently at each other with the heater in the middle of us. I know some couples that have like a 2-man cot, and they have like a 2-person sleeping bag. So, and Nicole and I each had just, like the really nice, more winter camping sleeping bags. And I've even seen ones that are really affordable out there that are good for, up to 40 below, and they're like $30. So there's some really good inexpensive options out there. And then, we did just bring some added blankets and other, just in case it was cold, and just kind of creating one more layer between ourselves and the cool air that's going to be coming up off the ice. We just had like a layer of blanket, and then you put your sleeping bag on top of it, and we were toasty and cozy all night long.
I think one of the things that people enjoy most about camping is cooking while they're camping and doing the camping style food. What kind of things are you guys eating, and how are you preparing your food while you're out on the ice?
So this last trip, we didn't take advantage of doing a catch and cook, but in the past, I have definitely done that, and that's my favorite. And it's, again, another really great, affordable option that for you, if you get on some good fish, you can, just have one of those, small, like the little pound cylinder propane tank heaters that turns into like a cook camp stove. And all you really need is some oil, a pan, a good fillet knife, and, a batter of your choice. And you got a full meal on the ice. Otherwise, if, always have backup just in case the fishing isn't very good. I'm a big fan of just, packing the traditional just sandwich stuff, lots of snacks, beef jerky, trail mix, kind of the easy go-tos for just kind of hiking it out on the ice.
What are some of the best spots for ice camping? How do you decide on locations to do something like this?
Are you talking specific lakes or whereabout on a lake?
I think both. So how do you find the lake that you're planning on fishing? And then once that you kind of get dialed in on that lake, where do you pinpoint this is where we're going to set up for this night bite type of thing?
If anybody's getting out and doing this as a first timer, I would really recommend maybe picking a lake that might be a little bit more populated. That way, just in case if you get in a pinch or something fails, you can get help and get to somebody else or get to the shore pretty quick. So that would be one, big point of recommendation for me. Whereabouts on the specific lake, totally dependent on what target species that you're targeting. When I've winter camped in the past and I'm, doing more predator fish, I'm definitely going to place my overnights pop up on some structure. I'm a really big fan of drop-offs. If I'm targeting walleye, big pike, anything like that, I'm going to be posted up right on a drop-off, kind of maybe adjacent to some shoreline structure where I know that those fish are going to be coming on and off those ridges throughout the night, just following the bait fish and feeding. And just like this past trip, it was post-predator season, so walleye was closed. So we actually opted for a great option if you're a pan fisherman or gal. It was late ice. We know that panfish are holding up in the basins right now. There's not a lot of oxygen in the lake, so they're getting pushed out and just kind of roaming the basin, kind of just trying to figure out where their forage is. And that is a really, really good option if you're not sure of whereabout to go on a lake, or if you're like, I'm not really positive of a good structure set up. I would highly recommend, if you know that there's panfish in that lake, and I'm setting up over a basin, because that's where a lot of those panfish are going to kind of just cruise through the night. And that was the case that Nicole and I experienced. We had plenty of crappies just roaming through all night.
What are some of your favorite experiences while ice camping?
It doesn't even boil down to the fishing, really. It's more just it kind of turns into, you kind of turn back into a kid at a slumber party again. At least that was how it was for Nicole and I. It was two gal pals just getting to stay up late and, doing our favorite activity of fishing, and, waking up in the morning and making, coffee with a percolator, or, doing a catch and cook and getting to sit there and eat fish that we just caught minutes before. It's really, for me, it's about the camaraderie. It's about just the experience. It's no different than, so many of us growing up camping. Some of those favorite memories that you have of just, it's, instead of laughing around a campfire, you're laughing around your ice fishing holes. And it's just very similar in that sense of bonding.
Is there anything about ice camping that I didn't ask you about that you want to bring up?
One cool, thing just in the technology sense that Nicole and I kind of discovered, when you're in wheelhouses, you can have rattle reels. There's really cool alarm systems now that if you are overnight camping and you don't have, a rattle reel set up because there's nothing to really mount it to, two really cool products that we discovered that really operate as an alarm system for overnight bites. There is one that's called Vulture Systems, which is like a magnetized, alarm flashing light system that you can attach right onto either like a tip up if you want to set one in your house, or you can actually set it right to a set line. And then for more of like a finicky or like a lighter bite, more panfish bite, we found this product called a Bobber Buddy. And Nicole, actually, we did a tutorial of it on a YouTube video on her channel, where it acts like a bobber pin system, and it's an alarm. So when the fish takes that bait, it just goes, it lights up and it sounds. So we got to wake up to the Bobber Buddy system going off all night. It was great.
All right. When you say it's great, this is the toughest question I'm going to give you for the day. When that Bobber Buddy goes off and things are happening, are you a yell at Nicole and roll over person, or are you guys both diving for the rod?
Well, see, we're smart. We figured that out before we go to sleep. So we say, because we would both dive for it and fight for it, fight for the rod. So we say, if that one goes off, it's mine. If that one goes off, it's yours. So we designate that even before we're off to sleep.
Awesome. Anna, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate you coming on and talking about ice camping. If people are looking for you, they want to find out more information about what you're up to, where can they find you?
They can find me on my website, which is just AnnaOnIce.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram under that same handle. So it's just Anna_on_ice on either of those. And then I'm also on TikTok as well now. So lots of fun fishing videos and tips and tricks, and even just some, silly fishing fun like we like to do. So
awesome. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Fish House Nation podcast presented by Catch Cover. For more ice fishing content, visit our blog at catchcover.com.